given. I stole this recipe from a renowned chef in Savannah, Georgia. And since then, this recipe has been loved by my family every Thanksgiving for years. Now, for a little context, I bake a lot. I can bake anything from a French macaroon to a creme brulee or a puff pastry from scratch, from a box. No matter what you want, I can do it. So, here I'm going to show you how I make my famous blueberry pie, including my crust, filling, design, and baking. So first we have the crust. This can be a pre-made crust found frozen at any of your local grocery stores. Personally, I find Publix to be the best. But you need to have 2 of them, and you need to make sure that they are a deep dish crust. Now, of course, as everyone says, the best crust is homemade. You can use a crust that your grandmother taught you to bake. You can use a crust that you found online. But my personal favorite recipe for the crust is on Sally's Baking Addiction. She makes the best recipes of almost anything out there. Now, a little warning. Most pie crusts, especially ones that you find in store, will tell you to pre-bake the crust. Do not pre-bake this crust. For many pies, you need the crust and the filling to be made separately and then put together at the end. But for this pie, if you pre-bake the crust, you'll get something that's burnt and flaky, and it will fall apart. So your second step would be the filling. For this, you need 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon that I always add more, and 4 cups of blueberries. You're going to simmer this mixture on a stovetop till you get a very liquidy, very blueberry mixture, and it appears something like this. Now, one of the few changes I have made to this recipe that I stole is that I always use a frozen blueberry rather than a fresh one. Fresh blueberries, in my opinion, don't give enough water to the mixture, and they don't make it as ooey gooey as the extra water added in frozen blueberries. Now you're going to simmer this mixture on a stovetop until it's warm to the touch and until it has a very nice aroma in the air. Your next step is going to be your design. After you've poured your filling into your crust, and you have flattened out the top, you're going to cut your second crust into 1/2-inch strips, like this. You're going to lay them over the top of your pie in a lattice structure. Now, lattice structures are used very commonly in basket weaving, but you can also find them in any other type of weaving and in lots of pie baking. So, 2 skills at once here. Now, when it comes to weaving a lattice structure, you want to make sure that each piece is folded over the other, so that no piece is on top of the structure too much. So you should get something sort of like this, where you have it going under and over each recurring piece of pie crust. Now, after you have put all of your pieces of pie crust onto your pie, you're going to pinch together your edges so that any seams you've made are gone. Finally, you're on to baking. Before you put it into the oven, cut about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of butter into the holes that you have in your lattice structure. This will keep your crust from getting flaky and burnt, and it will make sure that your crust stays nice and fluffy instead of a disaster. So now you're going to bake in your oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 50 minutes or until golden brown. Now, for my oven specifically, I do about 40 to 45 minutes. It really just depends on how your oven works. Some ovens, like conventional ovens, will circulate the hot air in your oven and create a more even bake. Now, when you're baking, if you don't have a conventional oven, you'll want to turn your pie halfway through so that each side is baked evenly. And if you don't have a conventional oven, bake for less time so that the sides of your crust don't get as burnt. And then if you do have the conventional oven, you can do upwards of 60 minutes, depending on the power of your oven. So now you should have a pie that looks something like this. When you cut into it, the blueberries will spill out, and it will be ooey gooey perfection. Now, personally, for plating, you should always do vanilla ice cream with a little dollop of whipped cream on top. So now you know how to make my famous stolen blueberry pie recipe, from the crust to the filling to the design and to the baking.